All right, guys, so we're recording. Okay, so I've already opened Brightspace. We're gonna get started. Okay, so today is the first lab, um, okay, of the semester, Wednesday. So the focus today is just gonna be pretty simple and relaxed. We're gonna look at VMs. Want to make sure everyone is on track with that. And then for those of you that have already set up your VM, we're going to go over our first lab assignment. So just to, and I want to show you what I really want you to do just to make sure that there aren't any issues. So the first week is this one, intro. Next week, apparently it's a holiday on Monday. So we're only going to have class Wednesday, right? So that cuts the week a little bit. And it's going to be more of a scripting intro probably. So that's what I'll do that day. Today, so the lab here, usually I haven't created the link yet, but I will in a second. I always copy pretty much this. So this is going to be the homework assignment. Okay, so from the attached Word document, complete bullets 1 through 26. Submit a report with screenshots for each problem and answer the questions, basically. Go ahead. It's going to be due a week from today. So I'll create the link and everything. In a second, I'm just kind of going over the information. So the Word document then that contains the problems is going to be this one for this particular case. As I said, I will add a link and I'll write some text there as well. But basically, we're going to go on the agenda today, we're going to go over the VM, all right? And then basically just a few Linux commands, right? So this is a Linux sysadmin course. There's a lot of topics, okay? So the one common theme is, of course, Linux and sysadmin, and I would say automation, but there are a lot of things going on that we have to understand the commands, what they do, and then get a general sense of how to use Linux so that at the end of the semester, you feel pretty comfortable with Linux. That's kind of the idea. And of course, the problems it's very easy today. They do get harder, right? So, got to configure things. You got to do lots of things like that. All right, so as you can see, these are basically the commands, sudo, nano. So I'll talk about these. I'll demo a few, and then I'll let you play with kind of the rest of them. Thank you. So make sure you sign in. Everyone should. So that's kind of the plan. But before, of course, we need the virtual machine. So I went over that on Monday, but I'll repeat it again. So everything related to the VM should be here, resources. I did get some emails. I know there's those of you that have Macs. There's nothing wrong with having them. I have a Mac here. I love Mac. I just happen to use Windows for the course because the majority of students will have Windows. You should be able to install VirtualBox for Mac. It's just going to be a little bit harder in the beginning, but I will say the whole semester will be the same because once you've installed VirtualBox, you're just loading up the CVM basically. And so that's going to be exactly the same thing for everyone going forward. So just make sure you do that. I do want to go over. So that's one issue that students had. The other issue is the errors issue. So I made an update to my document. It's not this one. I made an update here. UIID error, I think it is. Yeah. So the common issues that you will have are the UUID error, which we've talked about. And that is, if you see that error, it's because you already had a CVM on your computer. Okay. So VirtualBox basically initially it's only going to have that whenever you use that hard drive, it's always going to try to create a VM just using that same ID, and that creates a problem. So if later on in the semester also, we will need to have two VMs that have two different MAC addresses so they can have different IP addresses and all of that. And in that circumstance, you'll have to use this to just basically create the clone, okay? But that you don't need to do that right now, okay? So this is just, today we just want to set up our virtual machine. So if you don't have this error, then that's great. The other issue that a lot of students were having was the NAT network adapter name, right? And so that one, I provided this link here. I created a short 2-minute video. And if you just watch that video, you should be able to solve it. I will go over that right now, but just in case you want to do this again and you don't remember, you can come and look at it. And those are usually the problems, okay? And then after that, everyone should be able to get their VM working. So let me go ahead and do that one. So I'm going to start my virtual machine. So I've already installed VirtualBox. Right. Okay, you can see that here. I have my VM. I have two VMs already for later in the semester. And the trick to that NAT network is you follow the tutorial and then you get to an option and you select NAT network, but there's nothing in the second Dropbox. So there's no NAT network. So you have to create it beforehand. And so what you have to do is you have to go to File here in this screen, basically. You go to File and you go to Tools. And then in Tools, you're going to have something called Network Manager. Once you get to Network Manager, you click on NAT Networks. And I already have it, but some of you may not have anything here. Do you guys see that? And so all you have to do is you click on Create. And once you do that, it automatically will add this entry in here. And it says here that the name is NAT Network. So that's basically it. Okay, so once you do this and then just save or apply or whatever it is, and then once you have that, you can go back to the tutorial. And when you go to the dropdown, now it's going to populate something that says name NAT network. Does that make sense, guys? Does that make sense for everyone? Okay, so those are usually the common problems that you will have with setting up the environment, or a couple of you sometimes have Macs. But otherwise, that should be it. So my goal for today is to make sure everyone is running their virtual machine, right? And so let me start my VM. And then I'll just go over some of the commands. We're going to take it easy today, right? Just get everyone comfortable with Linux and understanding what we need to do. And then after that, I'll create the homework assignment. And basically, this is the easiest homework you'll have all semester, right? And next week, we will start doing scripting, as scripting is really important. In fact, automation, it used to be that, first of all, people would just learn the commands and they would possibly enter 300 accounts manually. And some people might still do that today and waste a whole day, right? But you can write scripts in Bash and Python that automate all that process. As you guys know, AI has been, it's going to revolutionize a lot of industries. And I can see how AI agents are going to start to take over this job. So later on in the semester, I'll show you how that might happen. So we'll see. So if anything, my point is there's going to be even more automation, way more automation. All right. So it's very important that you understand, the Python scripting is my point, because actually that automation that's going to happen later on in sysadmin, in my opinion, in cyber, doesn't require you to be a master in machine learning, because it's really just about using these models that someone else already trained and interfacing them with these that we're learning about in this class. Do you guys see that? So imagine how we're going to, as you will see later on, we'll write very simple code, very simple scripts using libraries. Now you're just going to have additional libraries that are basically AI agent. And what that's going to do is, given inputs, it's going to make decisions, and it's going to be a little bit smarter, and it'll help you out a lot. All right. So you're just going to add that element. So again, my point is, take the scripting part very seriously. Every lab assignment I'll try to make sure it has at least one components. So the format is going to be, okay, here's like today, here's 10 commands that you need to learn about. And they are for this, creating accounts or something. And then I will say, do that manually. And then I'll provide, okay, now a problem. Do this with scripting and automate it. Do you guys see that? And it's up to you. So I can, make it really hard, like saying, okay, here's 300 accounts, create them manually, or write this, and it's going to take you the whole weekend, or do it with a script and it's going to take you 30 minutes. You guys see that? So it's up to you. Do you go out that Saturday, or do you spend the whole Saturday working on homework? All right. So anyway, so that's kind of the point. So we'll get to that scripting and all of that next week, the short week. And today we're just going to start playing with Linux commands. Okay. You don't have to memorize any of this. But for the exam, just create a cheat sheet, and you can for your, so it's really about understanding and knowing how to use the operating system and understanding the basic concepts of it. So on Monday, I started going over navigation. I gave you some basic commands like pwd, ls, cd. The good thing about those commands is we're going to have to use them pretty much every time we're on Linux, because whenever we're on Linux, we need to go from one folder to the other. We need to create files. We need to see where we are. And so those commands we'll be using quite a bit. Okay? Everyone with me? So, okay. So our options right now are basically, we have, let me close this. Yeah, so let's go back to table of contents. All right, so we are here. Oh, no, sorry, not here. This is resources. We are in intro. And this is the Word document that we are going to be using for today. Okay, so I want to basically start going over this document. I want to start going over all these commands and just talking about them. But of course, I want you guys to follow along. So you guys need to be here, basically, right? So you need to be at the VM. So how many of you have already gotten to this point and you've configured your virtual machine? Okay. And then some of you are still having issues. Okay, some of you are still having issues. Okay, so let me, so for those of you that already configured your machine, open a terminal, just like I did here, right? And just start going over the document. So you can see here, this is your first lab, lab 1, intro to system administration, lab content, answer the questions, and provide screenshots. Okay, so remember, I'm always looking for evidence that you completed the task. So that means you ran it, and here's the output. Okay, so the first one is load your Linux Ubuntu virtual machine. Open the virtual machine using VirtualBox, run the VM. Remember, the username is seed and the password is these. The first thing you should do is just open a website with the browser, right? So to check internet connectivity, there's a lot of ways that you can check whether, if you have internet connectivity on Linux, but that's very easy one. Just open the browser, go to a couple of websites, right? We will need to have internet access to install libraries. We're going to need to have internet access for, different things, looking up information. So make sure you do that. And then after that, notice it says open a terminal. So what I mean by that is you open something that looks like this, which we started doing on Monday. And remember the commands, ls dash, oops, sorry. If you do something like this and you're stuck, you can just do Control Z, X, Z, and that should kill it. And so remember, you can do ls-l to see the files in there, pwd to see your full path, right? And cd to navigate, okay? So in case, I'm going to go to cd desktop, just in case I want to be on the desktop so I can see the files in this background. You can see ls-l, clear, all right? And there you are. So just start going through the commands. So the first question is open a terminal, which you did. What is the main interface for Linux? So if you're doing sysadmin, as I explained, these are like desktop Linux operating system, but you may have to manage Linux on server racks, and those sometimes don't even have GUI interfaces. So it's just command line, right? So you should know how to do that. So that's the terminal. So you can just simply answer what the terminal is. Okay, and then basically you will start with these commands, right? So whenever I write these symbols, the greater than symbols, 2 or 3 greater than symbols, I basically mean the terminal. Okay, and the reason why I do that is a generic way of indicating that that's the terminal is because that the symbol on the terminal will change. So you can, and we'll learn this later. So you can see right now, that's the symbol that it's showing, which is a dollar sign. But sometimes that dollar sign will change to a pound sign. And actually that has a lot of meaning. So that symbol tells you what type of administrator privileges you have. So in this case, for instance, I can see the dollar sign, and that's telling me that I'm just a regular user. I don't have administrator privileges at this moment. However, I can scale up my privileges to be a system administrator like root. And we'll learn a lot about that later. If that, when you scale up, then the symbol will change from a dollar sign to a pound sign, if that makes sense. All right. So anyway, so that's kind of the conventions of how I will write this. So the reason why I do this is sometimes there are certain problems where you need to understand if you should be a regular user or an administrator. And that, especially if you're doing like security type of problems. Okay. So just be aware of that. Sudo. So you're gonna, we'll talk about sudo, but for now, just, kind of Google what sudo is, type it, and later on, we're gonna see what sudo is for. Is basically for scaling up super user privileges. So we would use that. Nano we've used already. And so just play with these commands. Yeah, go ahead.
So you just
Screenshots and answer the question. Always provide evidence that you did it through some kind of a screenshot. Make sense? So I'll come back to this. I want to now just like go over and see, talk to students that have issues with their VMs. All right. So we'll do that. Okay. Does that make sense, guys? Yeah. Just go through it slowly, kind of get a feel for it. And basically the idea is you would go through all these commands. These are the general commands that we need to know about. So I'm going to pause the recording here.